brain was the first thing to start forming. Sadly, his brain formed first most times. He much preferred when his brain was the very last to form. When it formed last, he didn't have to remember all the terrible things that he did, that they did, that we all did. But right now, in this space between life and death, as his brain was forming out of a rusted bear trap buried beneath the ages of plastic and ash, he didn't have the chance to forget all the failures of preceding lives. No, this was the only point, the point between him dying and not yet having been rebirthed, that he was able to remember his past. He remembered the time Hammerhands enforced the work on the way to work laws, how the helpless workers' backs were bent from constantly carrying trash, how furious he was as their bones cracked and their fingers split. He thought about how the toothless and starving looked up at him as he climbed the nearest reeking garbage pile and screamed to the masses, right before Hammerhand smashed him back into the ground he came from. Looking back now in this momentary state of recollection, he could see how foolish he was to challenge the monster with words. He remembered how goo oozed from his ears as his shattered body twitched on the ground like a stink bug under a boot. Another memory came from when he was reborn near the sea, when it was still calm and reflecting the sun like diamonds strewn across a great blue mirror. Far from the trash walls of the city that was always falling apart, the beast sat calmed by the rare quietude and tranquility of his location. But the sea was covered in tiny plastic molecules that refused to sink. It shielded the underwater ecosystem from the already weak sunlight, strangling all life with the help of an impenetrable layer of oil that hung below the surface. Plastic and oil seemed to mate with the only life left, birthing gigantic plasta-oil crabs that scurried across the landscape, made of water bottles and covered in a protective layer of poisonous slime. But once reborn and memories had been erased, he was doomed to gain knowledge of the Kraken again.
Hi. Crab?
The heart grew next, and that's always a tough one after brain. Heart before head is almost always the better order. After all, who really wants to understand feelings and emotions when one can just let them rage without much thought? Though this time, as luck would have it, his heart had formed from a greasy yet intact candy bar wrapper made decades before the restart. The candy wrapper read Walnut Elation, and here, my friends, is where I'd like to explain why this is such a lucky pull when the heart comes after the brain. You see, the word walnut gave him a sense of strength, while the word elation made him feel all the good feelings he had in his past. Plus, let's be honest, candy makes everyone feel pretty nice. He thought of the world before the restart. Before Hammerhands and Lady Baghead and Camelman. Before there wasn't something to constantly fight against. He thought of a world before himself. His brain, while it attempted to de-rust the vintage bear trap, quickly reminded him that starting happy tends to make the fall a lot harder. Normally, this realization alone would have crushed him before he even fully formed. But again, and that's why this was such a great pull, his heart was just an empty wrapper. So this realization didn't hit nearly as hard as it could have. Armed arms and hands were next, formed from the carcasses of large gasoline cans. Cans that never made it to whatever form of getaway vehicle some unfortunate fool failed to escape in. Not that this person could have outrun what was coming, considering the whole world was turned into rubble, but I'm sure he or she would have felt very proud for about 700 or so miles until the gas ran out and the radon bears caught up. A new sensation came about for the prenatal ogre, a tactile sensation. He felt a warm ache in his knuckles forming from the time he tried to literally beat down the very walls of the city with his fists. Walls made of all kinds of trash the city had to offer. With each haymaker, he dislodged a grill of a car, a grill of a stove, or the teeth coverings of an ancient wordsmith. He got 4 punches in before the searing heat of metal grills poured on him from above. He moved on to a new tactile memory. He felt the cool rush of air on his face from when he plummeted to an early end while playing a game of Close Your Eyes and Run with Camel Man on jagged rock cliffs.
Run it! Run it! I run it!
Embarrassment was a common feeling in this phase of almost life. He'd remind himself that these endings weren't necessarily his fault, since, when finally birthed, he would lose all his memories. Yet even this oafish clod realized most other idiots he met on his journeys were still alive without having the world decide to constantly spit them back out. He braced for that moment not too long from now when he'd open his eyes and see this terrible old new world for what he'd think was the first time. The world that awaited him was harsh, yet organized. The organization didn't help our dear beast cause either. To give you a little history of the looming, gloomy world, many decades ago we finally fucked the planet. Like, fucked the planet. We filled the world with literal and emotional garbage. We fought over it endlessly. Pockets of people fought other pockets of people over the trash, whether literal or emotional, as they looked for any way out of the mess other than cleaning it up themselves. Then we burnt each other's lands to a crisp. The Earth responded by sending storms to wash out swaths of man-made marvels into our newly made seas of oil and plastic. Yet somehow pretty much all of us survived. Sure, millions died, but 10 to 20 million out of 200 billion is really a drop in the plastic bucket, of which we had plenty. Only one city kind of survived. Everyone began moving there, whether by choice or by force, and used their time to fight about whose fault all this was. The move was called the Restart. The people dedicated their lives to finding out who to blame, all while no one really took care of this one last inhabitable place the entire race had. The city degraded quickly until one day a group of people who believed a god lived on top of the mountain of trash in the middle of our city took control of everyone's lives. They planned out every moment of work, pleasure, and sleep for every person in existence, and the city just barely held on. Our friend in the dirt, of which his body was now being formed, felt we all deserved better than this. He wasn't smart enough to know why, but he was damn sure going to try and do something about it, even if he never was able to before. His trap laughed at his persistence. As his cooking time approached completion, his legs were formed out of blown out tractor treads, and then finally, he formed his dick. No matter what it was made out of, when it formed last, he had to chuckle. He always saw it as a sign in this next life he was fucked. In all honesty, his theory had never been proven wrong so far. But if this beast were capable of even a tiny bit of logical thought, he'd realize he was fucked no matter what formed when. He opened his eyes and all memory was instantly wiped away. Another life of Skulk, the Hawking. The ogre moved to a sitting position and cocked his head in curious confusion. Even sitting down, the beast was taller than any living creature he had yet encountered. His back bent forward with kyphosis, and his already sweating skin was covered in patches of hair like a balding bear. An underbite matched his protruding brow as his belly hung over his knees. The only glorious thing about him was his giant handlebar mustache hanging from under his large nose. It covered 2 broken tusks that hindered his mouth more than they were of any actual use. As he gradually stood up, the dead roots surrounding him held tight as he snapped himself free. It was as if the earth knew it didn't give this creature enough to accomplish what it hoped he would. But time was up. The beast stretched his already aching body and arched his back. With a blank smile devoid of any past thought, the ogre separated his tongue from cheek as he did bray his wretched name.
Doesn't believe in a God, but finds himself always nil. Wants to believe in this world, has no faith in himself. His wealth of knowledge is slim, his pockets even mow thin. When his heart opens up, he finds his muscles gone limp. Futility fills his lungs, morality, a mortality where his pride is hung. He lives among us, goes unsung while making fun of everyone's run forth undoes, but stunned by none. Welcome, find cheek buried in tongue. Save us, save us, save us. Won't this beast leave us alone? His town sings valuable challenge, I'll gallant build palace, on malice, on bounce, full signs, this callous up hammers to save us from heinous old creatures to keep us on the throne. Save us, save us, save us. Why won't this beast just up and go? From where he came, no one can say. Who can we blame to make him pay? The skies go gray, foundation shake as he does pray his wretched name. Stop the hunger! Now let your inner beast call. Gonna challenge your hopes, gonna challenge your dreams, gonna leverage these words called by you, open, cold-hearted, uncharted, restarted, subpotted, retarded. You don't have to be so guarded, cause every little thing I'm gonna say is self-doubt. If Sam feel like you're bombarded, get ignorant, disregarded, get pregnant, pass the buck. Is it out of love the world we hand up as fuck? Is it cause we desperately think get sucked? Is it cause we pussies all balls are tucked? Well, let me tell you why our balls are tucked. Big business turns into robots, big media got us out up for smut. Big pharma says refill up, we ask, is it just the drugs, just the youth, just lazy, what the fuck's the truth? Fuck's the use, is it too obtuse? Reasoning just a big excuse, fuck that. I say let's untuck our balls, I say let's get George's big dick out our jaws. Our cause is not a clause, applause, we'll have to pause. We draw moral laws and let your inner beast call. Now let your inner beast call.